Welcome, everyone. Before we get started, I am going to unmute, and then if you would just kindly mute yourself again, that will give you the opportunity to turn on your mic and camera at any time. All right, so thank you for joining us. I know that we still have a bunch of people that are going to be hopping on. We're on the new platform for GoTo, which is exciting. It's really good. It's going to allow us to do some cool things with the videos, like we could share videos in the future with audio. So some really neat aspects of that. Right now, though, I'm not able to see the PowerPoint and the chat at the same time. So if anybody has a question, or if you want to type it into the chat or the question and someone else sees it come in during, if you could just let me know. If somebody could unmute and say, just, head to the chat for a second, or we have a question, that would be really helpful. All right, so we have so much to cover, so we're going to dive right in. Today is going to mostly just be about science. We're just going to be talking about the background of these things, why it's so important, what we can do with it, and then days 2 and 3 are going to be more about the application. Tomorrow we will do the science of core and balance along with the exercise demos. So it's going to be different probably than it's been presented before, because we're going to be approaching it from the neuromuscular standpoint. So everything we do in this whole course is from the brain down. So we will have our systematic and progressive program design that we're used to, special emphasis on fall prevention. And also, one of the things I want to do tomorrow, some of the exercises might be new, which would be great, but also how to plug in all of the exercises that you're currently doing for core and balance and streaming them into this system. Then day 3 is going to be our big finish, where we put everything together. We're going to do a little bit of mind-body exercise, really simple exercises, learn how to teach them, who to do them with, and start thinking about situations where you can put this into existing programs, even if it's not going to become a focal point or an area of specialization. And then some other things too about further studies. So recommendations if you want to look into books, courses, CECs, a ton of stuff that we can cover there. Also, one thing to note, for everyone that will be here on day 3, this happens to be the day that the health coach certification is getting underway. They're going to be starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'm hoping everyone will be okay if we start a little early, just to give us some leeway with the last day of the course in case we have questions, and then to also give that group a little bit of time to get on, that they could have a prompt start. So, all right, what are the things that we are hoping to get out of today? So one, just becoming more familiar with it and starting to think of our field through these lenses, neurological, neuromuscular. And from that, then expanding out where we see, like, what is the role of this in daily fitness? That this isn't things that are for certain people. This is stuff that should be for everyone. Where in my mind, the fitness model is not complete until this becomes an integral part of it. The same way that everyone knows, whether they're doing it or not, everyone knows that they should be doing cardio, that they should be doing strength training. This is this missing piece. So I think it creates a lot of tremendous opportunities for us, and it fills in a lot of these gaps. So the thing that we're going to be returning to again and again is looking at the healthcare continuum and the people that are in other fields that need us, that there are these gaps in between, that they need us, that the solution to, I think, all of the problems that we have with our medical model and our fitness model together is us. And it's really exciting. So knowing all of that, we also need to know what to do, how to do it. So the exercises are going to be really simple, how to program them, but then equally important, how are we going to present these things? How do we promote? Who do we market to? What is the style that we present it in? What are the kind of buzzwords and language that we want to use? So this will open up the potential for a lot of new revenue streams. And I think that this is the most dependable, reliable funding that we have, consistent, because of the opportunities for partnership. It also is the least taxing on our bodies. So long term, like, there's a lot of benefits for us doing this, in addition to all of the benefits that it's going to bring our clients. So like I mentioned, like, think of cardio training. Maybe we're somebody that specializes in that, or maybe we specialize in a certain aspect of strength training. If we're not, we're still expected to be able to provide basic cardio and strength programs. This should be the same thing, that even if you don't want to specialize in this, no problem, but that you can still do really simple things that will help your clients right away, And then if you want to do more, if you want to specialize, then we'll talk about that too. Okay, so what's in this for the clients? It's going to all be about optimizing the wiring within our scope of practice. I think anytime we get close to the boundary with another field, we must always be just very vigilant about what is our scope, and how to make sure that we're always communicating that we're not going outside of that, and making sure that we're not. So when this piece comes in, then we have a model through us, through the fitness professionals, that can address these comprehensive health needs: strength, cardio, and now with these things, relaxation and stress relief. And as much or as little as you want to, you could also be working within scope of practice on things like basic behavior change, self-awareness, cognitive function, really helping people develop the skills that are going to help them to be happier, healthier, and better in adhering to all of the ones above, the strength, the cardio, etc. So we're going to dive into all of that. Interestingly enough, this is the first time that we're covering this, but this is what I've been doing the longest. So I have been in the field of applied neurobiology for 20 years. I have all the certifications, all of the different mind-body exercise things, and I did a 4-year intensive program in this. I have spent that whole time not just teaching classes, but teaching this, like teaching what we're going to be talking about today through all a variety of public health avenues and higher education. What's nice is that this allows us to do more than just exercise classes. We could do workshops, seminars, retreats. However much you get into it, it opens up more opportunities. So then I have also done, like TV interviews and scientific journal articles about this too. Okay, so before we actually get into the science, this is the one slide that I went back and forth. Do I do this? Do I not? Because one of my cardinal rules is no politics. I just don't ever discuss anything that is political or could be perceived as political, because I don't ever want to do anything that would exclude anyone. So I think in us talking about who needs this and why they need this, there is a chance that it could be perceived as that. That is not the intention. So I think even if we have different viewpoints on why different groups need this, or what the solutions are, that doesn't matter. Let's just kind of try to see this big picture and then use this as we move through the next slides. The reason I wanted to lead with this is because this will give us an opportunity to kind of right now take an inventory. Who are our clients? What do they need? Who's going to be receptive to this? Who might be resistant? And then what are the ways that we can kind of address those objections, difficulties, etc. So stress relief, everyone, right? Is there anybody that doesn't need to learn a little bit better how to manage stress? Now, working with the young people, and this is going to be up to 25, right? Up to the age that the brain is complete in development. Anything that we do that can help them develop their brain in a more optimal way is going to pay dividends for the whole rest of their life. Health and mental health too, but physical health as well. So I think there's so much that we can do with those people. Then young adults, by this I'm meaning mostly like Gen Z. So I really like a lot of what comes with Gen Z. We don't want to put everybody into a group, of course, right? But in general, a lot of what they stand for and relate to is wonderful. I think the other side of that coin is the mental health crisis. So there are so many things that this group deserves help with. And I think that we can be the people largely that are providing the skills to allow them to flourish and be happy. Now, more so I think than any generation, they talk about mental health. We could even say a lot of people are fixated on mental health. But the way that I see this is like akin to the saying that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So it's like this: if you're lacking mental health, the opposite of that is not being obsessed with mental health. The opposite of that is possessing the mental health and then just going on with your life. So I think like what I have found working with this group is that there's a constant awareness of what's not there, but that's not the same thing as possessing it. And the first experience that I had that really impacted me. So I teach kind of like interdisciplinary on the college level. The first time that I taught like a 4-credit course in this, the kids were like the tail end of millennials and the oldest of the Gen Z. So just kind of give an idea of that. And they were wonderful. They were great kids. They were going on to bright futures. It was a really great school. They were happy. When they did their evaluations and reflections at the end of the semester, it was like this thing that could bring you to tears, because a lot of these kids were pre-med. I don't know how it came to be, but a lot of them were pre-med. So they had a science background to begin with. But what they were saying was, I can't believe, like how much confidence I have going into my future, how this has changed my life already, that I feel comfortable handling stress. I know what I'm going to do in these difficult situations. And just seeing how simple this stuff is and the degree of transformation that it can create, especially in, I think, the group that arguably needs it the most and wants it. They want it. It's really wonderful. So I think it can create a lot of transformation, and it can also help where we're seeing some difficulties in the professional realm too. Okay, so let's jump ahead then to older adults. This is a group that's like super receptive, don't really need to sell them on it. They're living already why they need it, so they want it. Things like mental acuity, maintaining cognitive function. Also, they don't think of it as brain-body connection, but we do, right? Things like core and balance, specifically for fall prevention. The other area that I've done a ton of this is with performance. I love it. If you're working with athletes, so good. And again, you could teach them this through a sport, and then they're going to be able to carry this with them into the rest of their life. They're going to learn it one way, but it works for everything. So things like making sure the body's firing optimally for power, this stuff, but also mental focus, staying calm under pressure. All right, now one thing that I do think we should say at this point before we get off of this is, like, what are we currently dealing with? So whether it's true or not, let's think about what is just the average person's perception of these different areas. The one that I think is the easiest for us to do is going to be Tai Chi and Qigong, because they have somehow broken through to the mainstream without getting tangled up with cultural identities, getting like misconstrued, twisted, any of this stuff. However, people think it's only if you're 80 years and older. So that's what we have to overcome there. Now think of, I'm sure we all know people that are excellent yoga teachers, but we also know situations that are the ones that get the most publicity that kind of have given it a bad name. So maybe situations that it's going to be really just like a flexibility contest for Instagram, or it's about what you're wearing and how much it costs, or it's a very expensive program which is meant to specifically exclude people. There's a lot of these pockets that have given the whole thing a bad name. So we just need to be aware of that. We're going to see similar things when we're talking about meditation and mindfulness. A lot of times when I see these things come into my news feed, my reaction is not good, because I think that it has become distorted. So there's that. So we want to be thinking about all of this and how are we going to handle that. Now, also, this is a good thing. I think there are studies that are coming out now that show that some people do not do well with meditation. And that depending on, what kind of trauma they've had in the past, like they really could have a negative response. Here's what I say to that. It's almost like the seatbelt thing. In 1% of situations, you would have been better off if you weren't wearing the seatbelt. Everybody still knows to wear the seatbelt. You still choose to wear the seatbelt. So there are situations, however, you don't know how to predict that. But the way that I like to approach things, slow, gentle, that if anybody ever starts feeling bad, there's no pushing. That just like anything else we do, then that's a chance, an opportunity to stop, reevaluate, and maybe try again in a different way. Okay, so last thing before the science, to specialize or not. Everybody wants to maybe be thinking about this. Maybe you're going to get really excited and want to do more. You can do that. I have a ton of these certifications. I think they were all well worth it. But even if you're going to do the basic tools that don't require a certification, just remember, basic tools does not mean basic results. Basic tools can still lead to radically improved lifestyles and health. We just want to stay within the scope of practice. And also just be very, be honest. Like if you're going to teach somebody one simple exercise for breathing, it's okay to say, I was trained in this, right? That's what we're doing right now. That's different than saying, I have a certification because I did this course, right? And again, back to this idea of how does this all fit together? Just because this hasn't historically been a part of fitness doesn't mean that it doesn't belong there. When we think of our own evolution in the field, think of how it started with bodybuilding and now silver sneakers classes, right? What pushes it forward is us. It's going to be based on the needs of our clients, their interest level, and the funding that is available. So what's great about this is that we have all three in spades. At the same time, though, it's okay if you don't specialize. So here we go. Now remember, if anybody jumped on late, if you have questions with the new format, just at least today, if you want to unmute and let me know, stop me at any time. Okay, so here's what we're going to be talking about. Breathing, nerves, simple strategies, a little bit deeper with the nervous system, and then other options together. So let's do this. This is how I will always, like, I think the way I'm going to present this is as if it's a client, so that we're going to be able to all see how one style or how we could present it to a client. So whenever I am trying to show somebody the limitations with their breathing, I'll do it with the breathing test. So I'm going to ask them, put one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach. We could all do it right now. And then look down, take a nice deep breath, and look at which hand is moving. So the majority of people are going to say the chest hand, which means that they're breathing from their secondary respiratory muscles. Not so good. So that is what we call dysfunctional breathing. It's a shallow breath. The secondary respiratory muscles, just the neck stuff, the scalenes, the SCM, levator scap, upper traps. We have the secondary muscles for a reason, right? Like those are the ones we want to be using if we're doing super strenuous stuff, right? Like heavy lifting, sprinting, the stuff that is going to do the ATP PC system, for anybody who's into that, right? Like you go hard, go strong, and it burns out within 20 seconds max. Now, we would also be using that in real life in a true fight or flight situation. It also happens during asthma. The rest of the time, even during running, right? Say you're running like a 7-minute mile. If you're not sprinting, you should be doing the primary muscles. So those are going to be the ones that center around the diaphragm and include the intercostals too. We could call that whatever people want. The primary muscles, abdominal breathing, belly breathing, functional breathing, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. So let's think about people spending years, decades of their life doing this shallow breathing. Well, that's one of the things that creates the tight muscles up here. So for everyone that was with us in the corrective exercise, that gives you another insight into what made those muscles tight. So when they tighten up, our body's going to be pulling at the wrong angles. It's going to throw off the posture. Now that alone can create tension headaches, lightheadedness, dizziness. We're not getting enough oxygen. And then because there's less oxygen going to the tissues than there should be, we're not as good at cleaning things out, right, at the detox part of this within the muscles. So this can also happen when it can also be triggered by the brain, by the anxiety part of this is going to push us to the secondary muscles because it's there for survival. I mean, if we're in a survival situation, we want that. We do want that. So we'll come back to that a little bit more as we get going. But just think of when we're in the throes of anxiety, this is just, it becomes a vicious cycle. The mind cues the body to do the shallow breathing. The shallow breathing sends a message up to the brain that there is a threat. The brain recognizes that and then continues to fuel down. So people are like being limited in their functional capacity because they are living this way constantly. So again, we have to be super careful here that we don't diagnose the problems or the cause of the problems, but it is okay to tell people that it could be connected to and talk to your doctor about the potential connection to headaches, anxiety, fatigue, poor sleep, poor circulation, because the oxygen, not enough oxygen, not flowing optimally. But also then, once we get into the next part, kind of put a place marker here of that this is going to be connected to a lot of non-related diseases. So what ends up happening? Everybody's in this little bit of fight or flight all the time, or freeze, where body, brain, body are just constantly reinforcing each other to be in that state, and it is not a relaxed state. So all of these studies show, the studies that I really like the best demonstrate 80 to 95% of physical disease is caused by stress. This is it. This is the underlying thing that is creating the kind of like a recipe for these chronic health things to emerge from stress. It's not like stress health problems. It's stress, the body not working properly, more time, and then it breaks down and presents with disease. So when you think about that, that's almost everything. The only things that wouldn't fit into that are things that truly we are born with, or something like an injury or a physical trauma. So what I like to tell people is, don't worry, it's not too late to correct this. Anybody can. You could be 100 years old and learn how to do this. Also, this is a number that people seem to respond well to. When you shift to the abdominal breathing over the chest breathing, you can take up to 40% more oxygen per breath. Now, bear in mind, you're not doing more work. You're just bringing in 40% more oxygen. So think of all of these people that have the respiratory conditions. For those that were here last year, like when we did the special populations programming, something like the peripheral arterial disease, where it's like you're limited in how hard you can make somebody work with the cardio, but you know that the answer is to get more oxygen there. Well, look at this. It's like an easy solution to a lot of things. Um, but also, I tell people, just observe what's happening in your environment and you're going to see what is natural. And then it's like the science doesn't even matter because you notice what nature creates. When you look at a baby or a little kid breathing when they're asleep, you can picture it now, it's their stomach that's rising and falling. They're still doing abdominal breathing. When you look at a baby animal, a puppy, a kitten, anything, they're doing belly breathing. When you look at your ancient dog or cat, their health might be falling apart, but they're still doing belly breathing. It is natural for every species except us. And that is part of, like, it's the blessing and the curse of having the brain that we do. But it's just reminding people that this is what we're supposed to do. You just got to do a little bit of work to get it back online. So what I always tell people to recommend is like these 5 times a day, take 5 conscious breaths. So if they do the hands always on the chest and the abdomen, then that lets them know if they're doing it the right way. So normally when we're teaching them to do that abdominal breath, the muscles don't want to do it because they're deconditioned. So you have to kind of push your stomach out. So as we breathe in slowly, you're going to push your stomach out beneath the lower hand. Watch it rise and fill, and then just let it gently fall with the exhale. We don't need to actively contract in. So you're going to guide them through that and just do 5 breaths. Now, on Thursday, we're going to do a ton of this stuff. So usually what happens is this. If they can get this as a behavior, right? Maybe train themselves to do it when they wake up, when they eat meals, when they go to bed. Eventually, every time they think about it, eventually it's going to tip back over that you just become a belly breather, which is a really nice thing because then anytime life throws you a situation that you become a chest breather, you feel it instantly, which is really cool because then you can work on that. Okay, if we have questions, just let me know. So next thing I want to talk about, the group of practitioners that I am really involved with define health as this: optimal brain integration. And I think that we're going to know that we made it when this is the way that just the everyday person in our society views health too, because all of these health measures are going to be connected to how the brain is functioning. If we want to improve the health, the easiest way to do it is through the rewiring of the brain. The easiest way to get that started, simple, just with the abdominal breathing, because think of the radical change in message. When you take this nice deep breath, using those primary muscles, centering around your diaphragm, then what message is that sending up to the brain? Not here, not cognitive, deeper than that. What it's signaling to the brain is, it's safe to relax, crisis averted, whatever it registered as a threat is okay. Now the brain then gets that message, and what is it going to send down? All right, well then just keep it in the relaxed mode, right? So you see how it's always going to be traveling up and down, starting with the breathing. So the next thing we're going to jump into here is the polyvagal theory. But what I think the summary from this slide is that we can work with our body. We don't have to be fighting against. Like, think of maybe yourself, people you know, somebody who is dealing with anxiety, and when they are trying so hard to get out of it by thinking, it rarely works, and it's an uphill battle. This is a way to just bypass all of that and connect into the physiology of the body. So,
It's a question.
yeah.
Hi, Ashley. My name is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. You know, I am a big fan of mindfulness and proper breathing and all that. I teach a class of probably pretty severely impaired Parkinson's disease patients,
Yeah.
clients, and a couple with Alzheimer's. And I find it almost impossible to relay, even if you do it as basic as hand here, hand here. What do you
Yes.
feel coming up? They look at me like I have 5 heads. So I've kind of stopped doing that in the sense that I don't know that they'll ever get it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So that's a really interesting thing, and I don't want to be negative, but remember on the first slide when I was saying like the young people whose brains are still they're still developing. That's like working with clay, right? Those are the ones that we could get the best results with the fastest. And then I think as we move up and up, it's going to be slower or it's going to be harder.
yeah.
But Kathy, maybe you want to report back to us when we do on Thursday some of the different exercises. When I have worked with those groups, what I have found is if you start there, it's hard. It's hard to get traction, right? It's like spinning your wheels. But if we
Yeah.
do other movements first, it seems like it gets the wiring firing a little bit better that you can get some traction. And I don't want to say it's like, um, like expect that things are going to be gone, right? But it just seems like certain days, certain people are able to pick up better if we provide like an entry to it that's going to be a little bit smoother.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly willing to hear anything. I also work with younger drug addicts or
Yeah.
people in recovery. That's a whole new another ball game.
Yeah.
They are more receptive, typically, not
Yeah.
always. They are more receptive, and it's a whole different ballgame. It's
I
it's
know.
just hard to typify, you know, to do. Yeah, I'm just thinking of the things that I deal with and trying to extrapolate from both. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And what's really cool about that group in particular is that there is a kind of freedom, I think, that comes from understanding what happens. So let me just give one example. Like when we get further into this, what we're going to see is when we're talking about the brain not firing the right way, we're literally talking about certain parts of the brain that turn off. So imagine that we walk by like a candy shop that's making chocolate. We smell that, right? Most people are going to be like, oh, I would like that, right? That's if we're relaxed. Say that we run by that because somebody is chasing us for our life. We're not even going to notice the smell of that, or if we are, our brain is going to block it out. So you can see in that situation, what happens is a certain part of the brain literally turns off to elevate other parts of the brain, which is good. That's what we want. What happens is after a lot of people are traumatized, that they don't turn back on. So that's why a lot of people who there's a connection between trauma and addiction because um, like the pleasure centers of the brain don't turn on the right way. So then it requires like extreme behaviors or
I'm very aware
adrenaline
of that.
seeking. Yeah. So
I'm a
so then
recovering addict and alcoholic myself, so
yeah.
I get it.
And I think the best thing is like to be able to say, like, you don't need to fight against this for your whole life. We just need to get that part of your brain to turn back on. And it's not that hard. So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah,
It's
thank you for
it's
sharing that.
it's not hard if they want it.
That's
Let's just
true.
put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, true, definitely true. But I think mostly we just have to get people, get the foot in the door, and then they see that they feel good, and that's enough for them to keep on board.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this picture, we're going to see the sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous systems. Now, if we oversimplify this, which I generally do with people because if they don't have a science background, it's just easier that way. Sympathetic, traditionally known as fight or flight, parasympathetic, rest and digest. Now, this doesn't include the enteric nervous system. So if anybody is like someone that thinks of that as a third standalone, I am too. But anyway, we mostly need this vagus nerve. So of the cranial nerves, if we look at the picture on the left, the vagus nerve is our tenth. This we need to think of as the bidirectional highway. This is the answer to almost everything. So 80% of this is sensory, right? That's going to be based on the input from the body. So if the body's hyped up, it's going to send it to the brain. The brain is going to say, message received, keep staying hyped up. And then the motor response is going to be all of these things that are, related to anxiety or freezing too. We have the fight, flight, or freeze. So thinking about this, if we want to alter it, we know that it works in both directions. So that's really important. Now, what I'll tell people then is the vagus nerve doesn't just have one branch, it has three. So you're already familiar with that sympathetic one. We all know what that feels like when we're in fight or flight. There's also the dorsal part of it, which is the freeze state. So like think of people, um, that get into like depression or like any, like not even just mental depression, but like the physical, like where the body just kind of like goes into that like shut down, dormant kind of state, that's dorsal stuff. Ventral is what we want. So what I'll tell them is it's like a train track, right? So you picture where the train, like those junctions where the trains can go in different directions. It's like this. We don't need to make a big deal about it. We just need to have that little bit of space and awareness to say, okay, right now my vagus nerve is functioning on the sympathetic track. What can I do to get it back to the ventral? So it's really just that, like shifting the tracks of this. And in that way, when we work with our body, we're sending up that 80% sensory input, sending up the message that makes it much easier for the brain to respond down. So now back to what I was saying about what we'll do on Thursday. A lot of, even the stuff like that seems like it's not going to be hard, is hard for a lot of people. So what I have found is a little bit of movement is what gets everybody relaxed enough to move into something else. So Qigong, when Qigong became mainstream, I think one of the big things that did that was Dr. Oz. Now he's become, like a pretty political person, so it's not an endorsement of Dr. Oz. It's just saying, that he did a lot, I think, to get this, the publicity that it deserves. So by saying things like, if you want to be healthy and live to 100, do Qigong. So this is the exercise branch of traditional Chinese medicine. So you can do Qigong without having to do anything with Chinese medicine. I don't really do anything with Chinese medicine, but I do the Qigong part of it. It's an oxygenation therapy. So what do we see already? Doing is belly breathing, bringing up 40% oxygen. In Qigong, we're going to breathe through the nose. So anytime we're doing nasal breathing, the cilia are able to filter things out. So that's a bonus that we don't get with mouth breathing. But you can get up to another 13% more oxygen by breathing through the nose. Again, no extra work, just more oxygen. So Qigong has the 4 components. Movement, which we're all familiar with. Self-massage, we're not going to do a lot of that. I just don't think it's like within the scope of what we have here, but not because I don't think it helps a lot. The meditation part, for that, we'll put a big asterisk because this is not meditation of like, it doesn't have to be, sit, legs crossed, om, it's not that. And then the breathing. So let's do a quick comparison to the other similar like mind-body therapeutic exercises. Yoga and Pilates give you their benefits the same way that cardio and strength training do. They're external exercises, right? Like think of cardio, you work your heart harder so that it has to work less when you're at rest, right? Same thing with these. It's neither good nor bad. It's just what it is. One thing that does always make me a little bit hesitant about yoga is that because yoga is a religious practice, there are some people that might not want to participate in that if they feel like, that doesn't align with their own personal beliefs. So just something to consider. Okay, now with the Qigong and Tai Chi, these are internal. So it's through least effort, right? It's a path of least resistance that you get all of these same benefits that you do by working in every other kind of exercise. Now, the difference between Qigong and Tai Chi. Qigong is this exercise branch of Chinese medicine, and then it has all of its subdivisions. Tai Chi is a subdivision of that. It's the martial arts branch of it. So Qigong is just more about like healing. It's almost more medical if you're doing it in the traditional way in China. Tai Chi is more of a martial art. I like Tai Chi. I've done a lot of Tai Chi. I still find that people do better with Qigong because Tai Chi has a lot of involved forms. It's sequences. It's a lot of learning and practice. Qigong, easy. You could just get right into it. Okay, so all of those together, anything that's a therapeutic exercise, back to our famous phrase, use it or lose it, right? These are fantastic for helping us maintain bone mass, muscle mass, cardiovascular efficiency. Ironically, these same ones where we're hardly moving the body, they're the ones that are going to help to improve the same way as if we're working with cardio. Flexibility, balance, range of motion, and then also it can tie into people's specific goals. So just in general, like what are we trying to do with something like Qigong? Get the oxygen flowing. Now this is not in this like esoteric way. This is just really saying like we have a body, we have a circulatory kind of body, right? So we want to get in as much oxygen as we can. We want to flow it around efficiently. We don't want things to be getting stuck, just everything flowing. Same thing with the lymph. I feel like the lymphatic system doesn't get the props it deserves it doesn't have the pump. Our circulatory system has a pump. The lymph, we got to propel this on our own. So that's why Qigong is really good for doing that. But a lot of exercise does that too, right? It's not like this is only that. Bone strength. For everyone that was with us for osteoporosis, when we talked about some of the limitations of we need to be doing at least 70% intensity in order to remodel new bone cells, this is good because when we're doing weight-bearing stuff, we're going to be able to check those boxes. And then, of course, there is the relaxation part. But the big thing for me has always been relax while you're doing it, but learn how to get that to flow into your life outside of the exercise too. Okay, so just a couple studies that I want to show. And that we have links to these at the end of the PowerPoint if anybody wants them. There's 2 websites there that have a lot of really good studies. So the ones that I picked, I did these a long time ago and I never changed them because I feel like they get the job done. That you might be showing these to people where we want to keep it really simple, especially if they don't have a science background, but that we're able to point out pretty profound results. So what this one is looking at is over the course of 20 years, like I love these long studies. So this is over 20 years time. We had the 2 groups. One did Qigong 30 minutes twice a day. The other group did not do Qigong. But this wasn't just general population people. This was people that already had existing high blood pressure, right? So it's already high. So what is our projected trajectory for them? Is that it's going to be going up, right? But just by doing the Qigong, look what happens. So if you look here at the starting point, the control group, the systolic did indeed go up. Over the years, it went up and up and up. The diastolic also went up and up. The Qigong, if you create like the average line there, even though they started a little bit elevated, they didn't get back down to normal, but they also didn't even get up to the point that would be recommended for medication, which is pretty cool for both the systolic and the diastolic. So say you're talking to somebody with high blood pressure. This is a great one to show. And feel free, like if anybody needs these from the PowerPoint, the PowerPoint format, not the PDF. Like if you want to get these pictures, just send me an email, I'll send them over. Okay, next one was stroke. So this one is a 30-year, right? This is a 30-year study. Everybody in this already hypertensive. And we're looking at the stroke risk, all of this stuff. So everybody also received drug therapy, no problem, right? The way a study goes is that as long as everything is the same except one variable, that's okay. So we're not ever trying to tell anybody to take or not take medicine. So look at how many people actually died over the 30-year period. 40% of the non-Qigong people, 25%. But the one that I really like is the stroke thing. So they're already at a high risk for stroke. The people that did not do Qigong, 40% had a stroke. The people that did Qigong, 20%. So you, just by doing just the Qigong, the only thing different is Qigong, they could cut that in half. Okay, same thing with the death by stroke. Here's another one that I love. I think the best thing for cancer, in my personal opinion, is Qigong, because it just does so much. Now, if we look at the description here, improvement in patients with advanced cancer treated with Qigong and drugs, right? So what kind of like what we're up against here is that their body's battling the cancer, and there are the side effects of the drugs, right? We're all familiar with that, which makes it very difficult. So cancer people that I have worked with, their doctors always, I cannot believe that they're doing so well because they're doing the Qigong at the same time. So look at the strength. Okay, the people, the dotted group is the control group. So they have 10% improvement in strength. The Qigong people got almost all their strength back, 80%. This is while doing things like chemo and radiation and having cancer. Appetite, so big, right? With people with cancer, gotta eat. So same thing, 10% improvement, control, 60% improvement, Qigong. Diarrhea, right? So being able to like process and digest all of this. And the weight gain, that's huge, right? Just not losing a ton of weight. The last one is super important. So this is something that we don't see often in a graph, but it goes under 0 because where is the phagocytic rate? I'll just explain to people very simply. Like this is your immune system, right? Making the white blood cells that could Pac-Man anything foreign that comes into your body. This is why it's very dangerous, when you have cancer, that you're going to be at a high risk for contracting these things because your immune system is compromised. That's why it goes under 0. So it's not a huge jump, but the Qigong people are able to build their immune system back up. So I think in the end, that makes a big difference. Okay, now, depending what you're interested in, you can find these nice little effective pictures that are going to explain good studies for anything. Osteoarthritis, bone density, fibromyalgia, anti-aging and longevity. People seem to be really into that now. Senility, lung function, cardiovascular function. So if we kind of like take a moment to reflect here, it's like, what does this not help to improve? So I think that it's pretty cool. Now, once we jump to the meditation, also if we have questions, let me know. We're going to see how these things connect, but they're a little bit different. Now, I sometimes don't even like to use the word meditation because I think that this has gotten twisted too. It's not great. I don't think it's great, like the way that this is culturally perceived. But what I will explain to people is, again, oversimplified, and tell them that it's oversimplified, but just so that they get the idea of this. Right now, the way that I'm talking, that I'm working, my brain is producing primarily beta waves. You're thinking, you're processing, you're producing primarily beta waves. Let's say that you leave this and you go and you do something like you're washing the dishes, right? You shouldn't be doing the beta waves anymore, right? This should be coming back down, a lot more alpha, relaxed. Most people are not doing that. They're just constantly in predominantly beta waves. So we combine that with what's happening with the breathing, right? That we talked about, that the body is going to be sending the message to stay in those beta waves, stay like this, then the brain is going to do the same thing back down, and it just cycles. But like we said, both of those things are amazingly within our control. It's just kind of like the best kept secret, I think, of health. So Dr. Daniel Siegel is one that I love. He's like one of the pioneers of this. Some people might know him already because he has become like, he has definitely broken through mainstream respect for all of this. He says impaired integration is the source of all unhealth. Anything that goes wrong with you, anything at all, can be traced back to something in the brain. Most things in the brain are going to be plastic, that we have the ability within us, maybe not within our scope of practice, but a lot, right? A lot of what we can do can help change that. Maybe somebody needs something more specialized, but that it exists as an option. So when you improve the way that the brain is firing, so like we were talking about with Kathy, like with the addiction thing of like, say that a certain part of your brain shut off. If you get that to turn back on, everything changes, right? Again, it's like, picture we're going by that chocolate shop. If we're just strolling on by and nobody's chasing us, it's a totally different experience because of the parts of your brain that are on. So that leads to improved health on every single level: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. A lot of it without even trying. So we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness. This is another one that I'm kind of disappointed the way that this has broken through. I think it's not great. But it's okay because we have the opportunity within our field to really kind of harness this and make it science-based, respectable, effective for everyone. What this does, how this changes, is not even just the brain. Now we're talking about the epigenetic molecules. If anybody's not into epigenetics yet, I love this stuff. That it's not your DNA, right? So it's not going to be in the genes, but it's the other stuff that you inherit that predisposes you to certain health conditions, certain kinds of trauma, etc. And it's so amazing how this stuff can be turned on and off, which includes all of these diseases that are going to be connected with the expression of that. So that is like the way that we're working. We're never going to be saying to somebody, maybe we could change your epigenetics, right? But it might happen just because of kind of like setting the right environment for that to trickle down. So when we do our mindfulness on Thursday, really simple stuff, combination of 4 components. We could do it by being aware of the body, self-awareness, which body awareness is a part of. But then the beautiful thing, the freedom for so many people, is learning how to actually be in charge of your own emotions and your own attention. So this is like the area that you're going to see again and again. This is all front brain stuff. This is your prefrontal cortex. In particular, it's most often that medial aspect of it. So that is what we're going to be working on developing. And we have a super cool picture coming up, not just yet. So again, back to the mindful breathing. We already did it, right? Like even just that one breath that we took, we weren't really focused, but like really just to be able to feel that happening, that leads to a shift in how the brain is functioning. So that is mindful. Now, I would like to help people learn how to do it just the way, think of how we train. Who is better to teach this than us? Because we train people how to use their bodies. We train people how to um, condition new behaviors to train their bodies, right? It's us. It's all the answer for everything is us. That they can learn how to do it in a non-stressful, right? You don't go from I'm sedentary to I'm running a marathon tomorrow, right? So it's also helping people to learn healthy expectations of, all right, when we're here in this little bubble, learn how to do it. Then learn how to do it outside of this when life is not stressful. And then you're going to have the skills and the footing to be able to start applying it during stress. And that's really powerful because then when you're at the hardest points in your brain functioning, you can get a handle on them. Okay, so doing these things, right? What are some of the physical benefits we can expect here? Lower blood pressure, cholesterol, pain, improved immune function, increased energy, arthritis, weight loss. And the really interesting thing about the weight loss is that it's connected to cortisol, right? So a lot of people that are holding weight on because they have high cortisol from being super stressed all the time, and then their body is in that fight or flight mode and it doesn't want to let go of the weight. Usually it happens after people do like the yo-yo dieting, like starvation dieting. Then their body's like trying to hold on to it, where this part of the brain doesn't matter at all, right? This is the older part of the brain that is just trying to keep you alive. So I think being relaxed helps then with some of those other things, even not through doing a lot of work. So meditation again, because this is like this internal approach is going to, when we improve cardio respiratory function, right, then we're going to have to take less breaths per minute, and we're going to just be better at moving that oxygen around. So it really all helps, it comes together that puts people at a much lower risk of cardiovascular disease. So ironically, by doing not much of anything, people end up having a much better tolerance for exercise as well as being then relaxed too. Okay, so what is going to be happening in the brain? What do we want to happen here? That we want people to be in the present. And I don't like to say that because I feel like that has gotten so twisted, but it's just like, this is it. Like you're here, you want to be here. And that's how the majority of your life should be, not trapped in these places where people get on these loops that are playing again and again. And when we start to think of that as just a faulty brain integration, then it's like, all right, what do I need to do to get the train to switch to a different track? So that's part of this neuroplasticity. Like think of that word plastic, meaning like malleable, and it can change. So yeah, is this great for young people as their brains are developing? Absolutely. But for the rest of us, the brain can change. You can literally regrow parts of the brain just by giving it the right stimulus. So I think in terms of like thinking, thoughts, again, we're not ever doing things like behavioral analysis. Where did this problem come from? None of that. But just like teaching people the basic tools of, all right, hey, when you get in a situation that this is happening, when we do this with our body, it's a lot easier for that to just finish up and move out on its own, right? That it's not going to become stuck. I think so much of this poor integration is like stuckness. So it's always going to be body oriented. And it's going to help us to now use the front part of the brain, the new brain, the mammal brain, however you want to think about it, and shift away from the lower brain, the reptilian brain, the limbic system, all of this stuff that we do need. People say they don't want it, but I feel like, yes, we do need it, because if you touched a hot stove and then had no reaction, you would feel like, oh, it's a shame I got rid of that, right? Like we definitely need that. We just need to train it to only come on when it's appropriate. So if you want to get into more of this stuff, we'll have, like I said, recommendations on day 3. But this book was written by Daniel Siegel, the one that we just had the quote from, The Whole Brain Child, has become very popular. I love it. This is a great book for our clients because it's not very sciencey, but it has the science in there. It's just really engaging, easy to digest, easy to learn, simple tips. So like they explain this, the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. They also do this phrase, I love it, move it or lose it, right? That but here, lose it like lose your cool. That a lot of times when our body is going to shift, when the brain is going to shift back to that reptilian brain, the fight or flight stuff, that if through a little bit of movement, we can help guide it back up. So anyway, anyone who wants to read this book, it's also available as an audiobook. I think they did a nice job narrating it. It's great for almost everyone. Right? It's great if you have kids. It's great if you have grandkids. It's great if you work with kids. It's great if you have adult children and you kind of want to Think about how you raise them, how they are. Like, is there, anything any of that stuff. Also, it's just great for us too to think of our own brain development as children. Okay, so back to this. I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end for. I definitely want to see if we have questions and talk about what's coming next, but we have to get through this next one. So the effect of aging with the meditation. Your mind ages at a slower rate. The physical deterioration of the brain happens at a slower rate. You're able to maintain memory and recall better, and sleep. So think of how challenging sleep becomes as we age. It's something that we just accept as normal. It's not really. I think having that lower brain activation at bedtime allows for a better quality sleep. So this is my favorite picture of all the pictures in the presentation. What this is showing us is the cortical folds, right? The thickness of the folds of the brain. What happened over time? As people were meditating, the red blocks are going to be the group that did not meditate. So look what happened to them. You see the average line coming through? Look what happened to the physical folds. We're not talking now like hormones and this stuff. We're talking like the actual physical anatomy of the brain. The folds of the brain get smaller. They literally get smaller. So it's like people are like, what is happening to my memory? All the cognitive stuff. Your brain is getting smaller because you haven't done the right things to maintain it. Now, look what happens to the meditators. That's almost straight across. That it almost didn't decrease at all because they're putting the right stimulus in to maintain it. So in this way, coming back to, I know we have some people here that are new. One of my big things is that age, I just don't believe in aging the way that it is presented to us, because other cultures it doesn't happen. I think it's mostly having a lot of time elapse where something is not working correctly. So just like we talked about with the corrective exercise, if you get the right alignment, you're not going to have so much stress on the joints because they are meeting in a faulty way, right? So like your body can be fine, can be pain-free for as long as it's going to be alive if you have it in the right position. Same thing with this stuff, that just feeding your brain the right way, then our expectation should be that we're not going to lose this stuff. I think that's it. So the folds of the brain are called the gyrification. So like thinking what the word gyrate means, like twisting. So here's what happened. This is a science way to explain it. The group that had the loss, the gray matter is diminished, right? Well, no. The age-related effects on the gray matter are diminished with the meditation because they're able to maintain the cortical thickness. Now what happens is your brain, our whole body knows, use it or lose it, right? Our body is not going to maintain anything that has a choice to get rid of if it requires energy that we are wasting. So it's going to literally prune the neurons, right? You don't just lose a mountain of your brain. You lose it one nerve cell at a time, that your brain clips it off because we're not using it. And then over time, you start to see that as the loss of these cognitive things. So anybody that's concerned with wanting to be able to continue processing, making decisions, memories, attention, should be doing this stuff, even just a little bit. And then, I think we're all familiar with this, but there are so many mental, emotional benefits of doing meditation: the focus, decreased anxiety, less depression and stress. The biggest thing for me has always been like learning how to navigate a difficulty during the difficulty, right? Like getting the skills that it's not so hard, it's not so much work, that your brain just kind of, again, like almost reaches that tipping point where it just does better during stress, the calm during the storm. So even though all of the mental health field is so important, a lot of those professionals are not doing somatic kind of treatments now. They're not focusing on the body. It's more about talk therapy. And some of the talk therapy stuff can be contraindicated, dangerous, depending on what you have experienced. That I would love to see that field shift more into like where the default is going to be working with the body. But it just, this stuff just takes time. However, it's kind of old. Like Stephen Porges, who gets the credit for the polyvagal theory, this is 35 years now. So it's kind of slow that it's happening. But even with that, even when people are going to have intensive treatment, right, really dealing with issues, they still need us. we are still there. We could help support that. So it creates this opportunity for partnership with all of the mental health field as well. Okay, some others, right? All of this, increased productivity. That's a good way to pitch a lot of people when they don't want to do meditation. But the last thing that we have to hit on today is about this. Now, again, oversimplified, but if you look at the brain on the left, this is what my brain would look like right now. A lot of beta waves, right? A lot of thinking, a lot of talking, this kind of stuff. After meditation, a good meditation, what happens is the brain turns off. It's like, sometimes when something goes wrong with your phone and then we just turn the phone off and turn it back on, that's what meditation does. A lot of times it just fixes the problem. Think of when we're giving these examples of people that have parts of the brain that are just chronically turned off. When the whole thing turns off and then the whole thing turns back on, you have a much better shot of something else re-engaging that has been for a long time maybe turned off. Okay, so all of these other benefits too. One thing I really like about it is, like, the reason, everything else aside, I would just keep doing this for my whole life, because I feel like all of this stuff that we're talking about here allows me to be better in relationships. And I think when because we focus on other people too, that's a good motivator. All right, so the effects of time. The more you meditate, the more you benefit, right? Now, this can be really simple stuff. When we do the moving meditation on Thursday, it's not going to be like sit down. We already know. A lot of people are going to say, I tried that, it's terrible, I felt like a caged animal. No, we're not doing that. But if people can also work up to doing it for a little longer, that's good. And then if they really want to see big benefits, you try to get them to that place where everything can just be quiet and can really reset. But I don't ever talk about that, because then it almost seems like that should be the goal. Okay, so this is the last slide that we'll do, and then we'll come over and do questions. So if we do things like this, I think of this as a triangle. The meditation, which is going to be all of this stuff, coupled with mindfulness, the breathing, right, all of that together, and then the release of trauma, which may come through us inadvertently. It may also be coming through like a trained professional. This is a way to change your brain. Sometimes people, especially people who have suffered a lot in the past, are like, oh, this is great. This is like going to be the way to not experience pain. Not really. This is like, it can help you move through things faster, but life is life. It is going to be painful sometimes. It's mostly for the stuff that we get stuck with. So that's like kind of getting unstuck. Okay, so tomorrow we have plenty of time for this. We'll start here and do just like this little bit so we could talk about the other things. Yes, before we finish. So if anybody who joined today for free wants to join us for the rest of the week, we would love to have you. Just shoot me an email. I have my email there, ashleyd@wiseducation.com, and we could send you over an invoice to make sure that you'll get the quiz too. So if you get the quiz any day that you're registered for, you have 30 days to complete it, 1 CEC. We'll be meeting again tomorrow. For everyone that is in the Program Design Club and everyone who has paid, I'll send the quiz over after we finish. Everyone who's registered for tomorrow, I will send the PowerPoint. And I think we have handouts and stuff like assessment things, sleep assessment, stress assessment, things like that, I think are going to come on Thursday. So we'll get that ready for Thursday. Now, anybody who's going to be here tomorrow, you could just watch to do the exercises, core and balance, or if you want to, here are the things that I'm going to be using. Tubing, kettlebells, but like they could be light, medicine ball, like some sort of stepper or a step, something like a bar or something equivalent, right, that you could use as a frame of reference. Okay, so anybody who is here for the first time, if you would like to join us, we have our regular meetings in the Program Design Club. And up until Monday, you could join for $249, including whatever you have paid for this one. And then that would give you access to the full program. And we also have a Facebook group. Now, if you would be interested, like in the past topics that we did, those are available in the store. You could also do everything we had last year. We had 12 full meetings just about science-based program design. So that's available, $199 for the 12 CECs. The ones that we already did this year, in January, we covered assessments. In April, we did corrective exercise. In October, I can't wait for this one too. This is going to be like advanced program design, using things like in a functional way that is like different than exercises are traditionally done. So a lot of routines, video demos, and talking about how to do different programs. Okay, so this last one here is our sources. So we have the links there for the studies that were referenced. Qigong Institute, Qigong Research Society. Those are good ones to go to if you want to find your own studies. Okay, so let me come back over. And let's see, what questions do we have? Oh, good, we got a good number of people on. Great. Does anybody have thoughts or questions to share before we wrap up? Okay. All right, I see that Carolyn and Catherine both raised hands. Oh, thank you, Mark. So yeah, if you want to, can you unmute yourselves, or do you want, you could come into the chat, the question, or anybody could, everybody should be able to just unmute themselves if they want to say anything.
I'll just go. This is Kathy again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible to contact you separately about sort of a related but not an issue that anybody else wants to hear about?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Anybody can reach out to me anytime. Y'all have my email.
Thank you.
Okay, and how about Carolyn? I see your hand is raised. Okay, well, like I just said to Kathy too, if anybody thinks of anything in the meantime, also anyone who is watching from the recording, because I know we had some people who can't make it live this week, if you have questions or things that you want me to cover in the next day, just shoot those over in an email too. So,
Okay,
all right.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Lordy. I have been having such a rough time. I paid for the session the other day, and I'm trying to get on my computer, and it's not working. And so I'm on my phone, and was having a hard time getting my mic to go on. So I don't know what the issue is, but apparently Kathy can get in. Are you on your computer, Kathy, or
I am, although I had to do it an alternative way rather than
this?
go there was a way that didn't work and a way that did work, if
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
I
makes
I
think
sense.
downloaded the GoTo app like 4 times, and it just kept
Yeah, I
freezing
didn't
up
go
like a
that
black
way.
page.
there was
I
a
I
button.
Go ahead.
I had a problem with that,
Yeah,
so
it
I
sounds like
just went
Kathy
through.
probably did the same thing I did. Like there's a button that if it didn't work, it said open in browser. That's why I wasn't able to
Yes,
see the chat at the
exactly.
same time. So yeah, GoTo has like upgraded the platform. So I think we're just gonna have to figure out like how to fine tune it. But yeah, Carolyn, also you'll get the recording. So I'm sorry if anybody missed any of it with technical things, but the recording should come out in just a couple hours. So if anybody has anything to share after they view the recording, let me know, and then I will send the quiz over to everybody who paid, and I will see you back tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be really good.
Okay.
Tomorrow's going to be
I
totally
got 2 more
different.
questions though.
Oh, yeah, sure, go
Um,
ahead.
I so how do I sign up for tomorrow's session? Is that another fee for that?
Yeah, so when you go onto the registration page, the way that they're set up on there, for everything that's more than one day, you just have to click down, like where you see the date at the
It
top, if
wouldn't
you
let me
click
do it
that.
there either. It only let me sign up for the one. I don't know what the issue is. I don't know. I'm
Let
really
me,
having a hard time here
Is
with
Jay
all of
on?
this.
Is
yeah,
Jay
I'll
on?
make sure. Oh, yeah, Jay, that's you? Oh, that was somebody else who asked. Yeah, I'll make sure that you get it set up for tomorrow, Carolyn. If anybody else has trouble, let me know. I check my email until right before we start, and also Jay stays on his email during, like if anybody needs technical stuff during it. So that's just good to know in the future. If you have any problems, you can reach out to him too.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try to get on tomorrow. I need to pay the fee. I don't know how to get to it.
Okay, well, and then it'll be good that we're doing stress relief stuff.
Woo, girl.
Yeah. All
And
right.
I got
Thank you,
right away. I
everybody.
got a client coming. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I will see you back tomorrow.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.